wanted me to join another party. Say it again, no way! They wanted me to fight my party. I'm a colleague of Kemraj Ramjatan in the same building. And he tried, and he tried, and he failed, and he failed. I told him, I will never become a Nimakaram.
In 1992, 98% of what Guyana earned went to repay debts. The country was bankrupt. Infrastructure was dilapidated. The country was in shambles. From being the breadbasket of the region, Guyana had been relegated to one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Even worse, Guyanese had been denied the right to free and fair elections for decades. Today, debt service ratio is down to only 4%. The country is booming again. We are the envy of the region, with strong economic growth for successive years, despite a global recession. And Guyana is poised to take off to even greater heights.
Together with the PPP C.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. No matter what the name, this is what the APNU offers Guyana. This is what they want you to vote for. But we all remember too well what this represents.
We must look backwards.
Guyana says, never again.
We must look backwards. We must look backwards. We must look backwards.
Under Donald Ramatar presidency, it will be better tomorrow.
Hey, are you ready for victory? Let me see your hands. Put them up, put the cup in the air. Oh, come raise it up now. From strength to strength, we're moving with the PPP C. What's in my cup? Stays in my cup. In my cup, stays.
As the opposition, AFC and APNU continue to play political musical chairs, it's hard to tell them apart any longer. The change they speak about is more about how they exchange from one party to the next. But who can trust their judgment when they can't trust themselves on which party they choose to lead Guyana? In this election, the choice is clear. And the record of a caring, competent government is there for all to see. The positive changes happening all across Guyana for everyone. The PPP C has performed and will continue, working together for a better tomorrow.
Hey, are you ready for victory? Let me see your hands. Put them up, put the cup in the air. Oh, come raise it up now. From strength to strength, we're moving with the beat.
Welcome to this media update by the People's Progressive Party Civic. I'm Romel Rupnarayan, the party's media coordinator, and to my left is one of our executive members, Mr. Robert Prasad, and to his left is no other than Mr. Lennox Maboya Wood. I will first invite Mr. Prasad to make some brief statements, after which we'll move over to Mr. Wood, and then we'll take your questions. Mr. Prasad.
Thank you very much, and happy to see you on such a rainy day. First of all, we would want members of the media to view clips of a very successful public meeting we had at Buxton last night. First of all, I want to say it's one of the better attended public meetings the PPP C would have had in Buxton, having more than 700 persons there in attendance, and certainly it reflected the community's desire to be part and parcel of the platform, but certainly to listen to our speakers and to what the PPPC has to offer as it continues the process of transformation in our country. Those of you who are there, and I know there are a few of you who are here, were there, and you can validate that. The meeting started well, persons came out. And then suddenly persons, there was a group which was assembled at the Market Square area with persons who were brought in as far as from BV, were given the necessary instructions, and then they proceeded to the site and attempted to, one, assault and abuse persons from Buxton who were in attendance, as well as try to disrupt the meeting. As you know, the meeting continued, and all the persons spoke, and persons there who attended stood their ground, which was very, very commendable. Our concern is that this was clearly centrally orchestrated and organized, because there was also a former presidential aspirant of the PNC on site there too. And we have photograph of that individual. Whatever we say, we have photograph and video recordings of what took place, and some of you were there. We consider that an act of desperation. I know both the APNU and AFC Alliance would have been grossly disturbed by the positive response, and certainly would have activated this effort to disrupt and to disturb the meeting. We do hope that first of all, these political parties will desist and certainly not encourage such behavior, as we've always maintained. They're not helpful to the peaceful and civil elections climate. And people in every single community, every individual, every single Guyanese has the right to listen and to participate in the political process without any impediment, notwithstanding any community. And that is why we've always made it clear that the PPPC will go to every single community. We do not label any community as opposition or any other party. We see every single community as part of the Guyanese family, and as a national party, we will go to every single community. I know that the political opposition was shocked, and perhaps it created some nightmare, and that is what their response was last night to the large turnout at that meeting. But that is no excuse for anyone to engage in such. There was also elements of violence too, because some of our supporters there, they were beaten as they left the meeting site. And I want to see the AFC, I want to see the AFPNU, I want to see GCOM, I want to see an international community, I want to see civil society condemn such behavior. Condemn such behavior. And we will be writing GCOM, and we'll be enclosing copies and clips of what took place, so no one has to take our word for it alone. We will be making this available to the international community too, to see the type of harassment and intimidation that our supporters, to see the disruption that is targeted at the PPPC and the people of Guyana. Because that is not only an assault on the PPPC, it is an assault on the democratic spirit, it is also an assault on our people's willingness to participate in the process freely, fairly, and also in a manner in which they will not be intimidated. So that is the first issue I want to bring our attention to. The next issue today is that I want to announce that our presidential candidate has confirmed his participation in a debate at the University of Guyana, presidential debate that has been organized by the Faculty of Social Sciences. And that debate will take place on the coming Thursday, the 3rd, which is November the 9th, at 3 p.m. at the George Walcott Lecture Theatre. And certainly we would expect that the other political parties will participate. He's also agreed, because of availability of his timing. We've received an invitation from the National Communications Network, which is facilitating a presidential debate for all the political parties contesting, and that will be held on the 15th of November and at sometime in the evening. So I want to confirm that he has indicated his availability for those two presidential debates, because I know there have been a lot of misrepresentation. In fact, the opposition has been suggesting that Mr. Ramatar is dodging. Although we made it quite clear that once we have the available time and the arrangements are put in place, we will participate. So those two are the two debates that Mr. Ramatar will be participating so that we can have a continued and enlightened form of interaction with the wider public. The third issue I want to touch on is that, as you know, we continue our campaign with a focus on the hinterland, but not neglecting the coastal areas. The Buxton meeting yesterday was an example. Today, our presidential candidate will be at Claremont. There are other meetings throughout the coast. Every single day, we have close to 45 to 50 meetings being held. But there are some large and grand public meetings tomorrow at Maruka, where the presidential candidate, the president, and other leading members of the PPP Civic, as well as local leaders, will be participating. And on Sunday at Lethem 2, we will also have another massive public meeting there to allow our presidential candidate and others to be part of the PPP Civic's platform in this regard. And on Monday, we head to Oriala, where there's also a grand public meeting. And on Tuesday, we'll be in Wim, Bloomfield area. The residents and the community there has asked for a grand public meeting at which the presidential candidate, the president, and other leaders will be also the Wim, Bloomfield on Tuesday. And that certainly would indicate the country and the national focus that we're giving our campaign. I must say, based as evidence from the Buxton meeting last night and the response we've been having at our rallies and grand public meetings, our campaign certainly has gained a lot of momentum. We're certainly enthused by the Guyanese people's response and participation. And I want to assure our supporters and all other Guyanese who want to be part of the PPP Civic platform not to be intimidated, not in any way to kowtow to the agents of disruption, because we know the APNUs and the AFC campaign on a platform of law and order and justice and security. They have a former brigadier, they have a former commissioner of police. And we saw what they mean by law and order and justice and security by their raucous behavior outside of City Hall. We saw also what they mean by law and order by what they encouraged and certainly directed at Buxton last night. But we want to appeal to the people of Guyana. The vast majority, as we saw last night, demonstrated by the people of Buxton, not to be intimidated, not in any way to be provoked, as we move again towards the consolidation of our democracy and progress in our country. So those are my opening remarks. Probably we can have Mr. Wood to give his observations about last night.
So,
my name is Lennox Mboyo Wood. I'm from Buxton. I was one of the speakers at last night's meeting. I think all in all, the meeting was a success, tremendous success. And I'll tell you why. See, there were a few, oh, sorry. Yes. I think all in all, the meeting that was held last night was a tremendous success. And the reason why it was successful is because the few hecklers that were brought in from outside as well as a few from within, who were organized and brought there for whatever purpose, negative as it was observed, when I came on to speak, I had to remind them that in civil society, people have a right to protest. But when your protest degenerates to the point where it becomes disruptive, then what is being demonstrated there is arrogance. And when arrogance is demonstrated, there's nothing fruitful that can come out of that. So when I made that point to the audience, automatically they realized that, we've been something going wrong with this action that we're taking. So what they did, they decided, well, look, let's listen to what this brother had to say. And I pointed out to them that in this community here, in Buxton, in Guyana itself, what we're looking at now is a change, a wind of change that allows new unions to be created. We see that parties which were once destructive to each other, we know that the WP and the PNC were two of the most vicious enemies. And we see them now becoming one. The reason why that is so is because in this Guyana, present day, we have a democracy that allows that kind of freedom to be exercised. We see people from parties leaving for various reasons to join and link up with other parties, what that does, that wind of change does, it allows new blood to be infused into what once used to be old blood. And it helps to bring about a neutrality. My reason for being here with PPP Civic dare not be challenged by anyone because it was my choice to be here. And other people made their choices to join other parties. Now, the reason I'm here is because I believe that by being here in the PPP Civic, I can be that bastion of change which is so much desired and which I think the PPP welcomes. It is because some people are intimidated to the point where they cannot even present themselves as, you know, parties other than the one which they were aligned to all the years. For example, in Buxton is known for a very stronghold of the PNC party. But we have brothers and sisters who are not actually committed to that. But they're afraid because they will be stigmatized, they'll be labeled. I'm not afraid to be labeled. I know what is going to happen tomorrow and from here forth onward. They're going to have all kinds of names describing me as crossover, soup drink and all of that, but I'll tell them plain. Let them know clearly. This decision here to join the PPP Civic was made by me because in this country, we have a freedom to do that. I think that I can be a mantle, a bastion of hope for the communities out there. PPP Civic needs more people like me so that this infusion of African American blood into this party will, what you call, neutralize whatever was going on before and become an outreach to those communities which were not served all the time through previous regimes. My presence here in the might reach by extending that olive branch to the PPP Civic. I was able to garner a lot of infrastructural change in my community. Other brothers, I think, Afro-Guyanese brothers in other communities, by joining the PPP Civic, what is going to happen is that you will become that bridge, you will become that conduit through which the message from your community can reach the higher echelons in the party, and therefore you can see a greater outreach coming to your community. This is my message to you. I want to thank you for listening for this short period of time.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen.
I just want to add one other point too, in addition to what has pointed out, is that we've circulated some excerpts of what has been sent, and I can circulate all. If you think these were bad, you've seen the others. There's also a fear and intimidation campaign taking place in cyberspace. That's on Facebook, where persons have been inboxing people they perceive to be PPP C supporters, threatening them using very demeaning and racist remarks. So whilst you may see elements of it publicly demonstrated, there's also a similar campaign of intimidation that is taking place on cyberspace. And because we know in this new age of ICT, there's a lot of electioneering activities taking place. But I wanted to put the public on alert. We also wanted persons to know that we intend to go right Facebook so that they can be aware of what is being done and what is being said. Because people are receiving threatening messages, people are being said the most demeaning things, and when you read that, you will see for yourself in this regard. So you have this desperation that it seems to be intensifying, because I'm quite sure the opposition and these parties would have seen the writing on the wall, and we have this type of reaction. Again, I want to urge our supporters, Facebook here, elsewhere, again, not to be intimidated and not to respond, not to be provoked, but continue to contribute to a spirit and to an atmosphere of civility, of peace, transparency, and that at the end of the day, come November 28th, we will have, again, one of the most successful elections, and the country as a whole can proud ourselves as being very mature and very democratic.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the floor is now open to you.
Minister, I'm a bit confused. I'm wondering by what yardstick is the party measuring success? Because and I'm talking specifically about the meeting last night, while clearly there were supporters for the PPP, the vast majority seem to be in the opposition camp, so to speak. So I'm wondering, why really is the PPP calling it a successful meeting for them when it was very chaotic at times? And quickly, if I may, before I ask another question, I'm wondering, when did you arrive in the country and when are you leaving? Scheduled to leave?
I arrived.
Yeah.
Arrived on Monday, Tuesday morning. I'm leaving on Sunday.
I'm not sure what's the drift of that question. I'm not sure unless you intend to give him a ride to the airport, offering transportation. But let me make it absolutely clear that the diaspora is very important. We do not disrespect or we do not discount the value of the people who live in the diaspora. They're very much in touch with the Guyanese community. People travel a lot. And we wish to commend the brother from Buxton, as we wish to commend others who come from time to time to be part of this dialogue. He lives in the United States, whereby we know is the beacon of democracy and freedom. And if we can reinforce what we're trying to build here by learning from the diaspora, certainly it's a good thing. You know, success. You were there when the meeting started, and you saw the numbers. I hope you were there when the meeting started. I saw you in some of the photographs that we had. And so I'm quite sure you were there. And you saw the large turnout. And you saw the small crowd, the band that came down from the market and started to push into people's hand. And people were told, because you live in that small community, they were intimidated, they were threatened. A Rastafarian brother was beaten up to afterwards. So I'm not sure how you can convert a small disruptive band into saying that the vast majority of the majority represented the opposition in this regard. The community turned out overwhelming, and we are very upbeat about that. You were there from the start. You saw what happened before the little group came in. I don't know what that.
I'd like to add something to that. Sometimes success is not measured by the number you see in front of the stage. Understand that, my brother. In the streets, in the middle streets, along the houses that surrounded there were people there also listening. Way beyond that narrow area that you were looking at there were other folks listening, sitting in their shops and stands and so forth, nearby stands and so on. So an accurate number cannot be obtained by just looking at what you see happening around the stage. In addition to that, my brother, if you were a community activist like me in Buxton, you will know that the intimidation, the level of intimidation has risen beyond what it usually is for any given day. A few of my soldiers, their bridges were removed. You don't know about that, right? Yeah. A few of my brothers, their bridges were removed from gates when they got back home. They couldn't even enter their yard. They had to use conduit through the neighborhood yard. So those are incidences that, you know, that results from intimidation. So the intimidation factor may very well, you know, temper the number that you will see actually appearing there. Those people would have been secluding themselves beyond the boundaries of there. So success is not always measured by just what you see happening in front of the stage.
Also, never underestimate what we consider the silent majority. Never underestimate the power of the silent majority. And given the reality that we know, this was a community that was held hostage by a band of criminals. And the people of Buxton were subjected to the worst form of violence. The women, the girls in Buxton, what they were subjected by the band of criminals. So you have to understand a little of the history, which we don't want to repeat. And by what we saw there yesterday was the power of the silent majority. And never underestimate that.
Dennis?
Mr. Wood?
Yes, sir.
Dennis Shimon, Governor Airways. Sir, while some agree with you that yes, the village has seen some development over the past few years, there are others who would say to people like you that there are much more deep-seated problems that have not been addressed, and perhaps you would have been one of them who would have been minorities, for instance, the issue of crime, corruption, even past discrimination, and so on. How do you deal with that kind of concern, if not criticism?
Thank you very much, my brother. It is because there was no Mr. Wood in the PPP Civic why that issue was not addressed in a way, in a manner in which it should have been addressed. For example, my presence here in the PPP Civic, my intent is to form that conduit in which concerns like those will be articulated to this government and addressed, so that a proper form of redress can be made or allotted to the concerns that are being aired to them. I am prepared to be that buffer, the person who will articulate such concerns to this government, to bring it to their awareness that the communities out there, not Buxton alone, I am prepared to advocate on behalf of every other village, every other black village in this country, where their problems are not being addressed. I am prepared to be that conduit that will bring that message to the brothers up here, so that redress could be had. We had sisters like Erod and so on who inadvertently got killed during that whole uprising. We had brothers who were, treated very badly, arrested and beaten and all that kind of stuff. I think with my presence here, such concerns can be better articulated to the PPP Civic hierarchy, and then some form of redress be made. That's my role here. So for those who say that I am turning a blind eye, I'm not. I'm an advocate of my people, and I will remain that. And so long as I cannot do that, I'm going to say to hell with the PPP Civic.
Just a follow-up.
What exactly, Mr. Wood, would you like to see be done? Could you elaborate on what are some of the ideas you intend to put forward to the PPC to address those concerns?
No, this is not a place for me to do that right now. What I tell you, what I intend to say here now and then is that for those issues that are undercover, I am going to raise them when the time comes at the right forum. Me spewing that here is just talking points. Makes no sense to me. But what I'm going to do is meet with the respective authorities in the PPP Civic who can better give me a response so that I can transfer that to the people when the time comes. But I intend to do that.
Yes, Gary.
Before I go on, I just want to, touching on what's our platform or development agenda, if we read the PPP Civic Manifesto, the manifesto clearly spells out the roadmap for development. And it is not a manifesto that focuses on one sector or one region or one strata of society, but it is very all-encompassing, as has been our outlook. And I want to quote a paragraph from the presidential candidate where he said that the People's Progressive Party is committed to building a country in which no one feels disenfranchised from development, and then the rest is there for you to quote. That is the pact, that is our commitment, and that is what we have been practicing and will certainly continue to practice as we go forward in moving our country forward.
And with me here, I am prepared to hold them accountable for that.
Gary.
Yeah, the second follow-up. Notwithstanding what was just said, what assurances do you have from the party that these concerns will in reality be addressed? How do you plan to go about acting as a conduit, an effective conduit, when you leave the country on Sunday? And would you say that Mr. Lumumba, who has been seen in the past as that conduit with Buxton, would you say he's been ineffective? Because you said there wasn't a benefit.
No, you see, I cannot speak for Mr. Lumumba, but I can speak to some of the things that he had done, has been doing and is still doing. It's not that Mr. Lumumba has never been ineffective. With the advent of me on board, working with Mr. Lumumba, it provides a greater opportunity for a number of those issues to be addressed and articulated. You're talking about one man in an entire village. Now you have two. I think we can, the effort will be doubled. Number two, you cannot ask me to preempt what tomorrow is going to be. I'm not going to sit here and do that. What I'm going to tell you, but you made a point. If I'm out overseas, how the hell am I going to be able to address these concerns as you're saying. No, listen to me. With our ITC with ITC and all of that in place, I don't have to be here to articulate a concern about my village to anybody in the PPP Civic. The means would be there so that I can effectively do that from wherever I am in this world. Because even if the president is in Africa, he can still run issues here in Guyana, as we can see. And that is exactly how I'm prepared to operate in this interim. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. If the things become critical that I have to come here and forgo what's going on over there, I'm going to do that. I'm prepared to do that. Relinquish what's going on in the United States with me and come here and work on behalf of my people in Guyana so that whatever is there in that manifesto could be realized. I am prepared to do that, sir. But
Thank
I
you very
can.
much. Radha?
I have a few issues, but outside of the topic so far. But one related to it, you mentioned writing to GCOM again about concerns. You've written to GCOM on several issues already, including the GPSU, which the presidential candidate is doing. Are you satisfied with GCOM's response to your concerns? And yesterday's 8% public servant increase is being termed as electioneering. How does the PPP explain the 8% increase in this year?
Well, the first issue is that I must say that yesterday I've again reiterated our disappointment in the Ghana Elections Commission for allowing GPSU for being an observer because given the reasons we have stated in terms of the GPSU, making it quite clearly its political preference. We were not offered an explanation. In fact, we received no response from GCOM other than to read in the newspapers that the GPSU has been accredited. We find that as an insult and an affront to our concern. And I reiterated that in a letter to the chairman of GCOM, and we've circulated that. But that incident, seems to be part of a pattern. GCOM seems only to be putting greater emphasis on concerns expressed by the opposition. Our concerns, it seems as if it's being treated in a very insignificant way. And as a stakeholder, we demand of GCOM to treat us fairly, and we do not ask GCOM to favor us, but also to treat us respectfully, and not to engaging us as if we do not count or we do not matter. In the PPP Civic, we are dissatisfied in the way some of our issues have been addressed. But we see how quickly GCOM is. When the opposition or others raise matters, they convene meetings and they call them in and they make statements and they kowtow. When we have concerns, sometimes we are not even afforded the opportunity of an acknowledgement. And I think that is something that GCOM needs to correct very, very quickly. And the GPSU matter is just an example, and a copy of that letter will be circulated to you. On the second issue, we all know in our country that an award is made to public servants around this time. It so happens that it coincides with election. We also know too that we try to have some level of uniformity in terms of the wage increase given to people from the public service or also those who work within public and state institutions. And the announcement yesterday certainly fit into those patterns and those established arrangements that we've had or precedents in this regard. To those who say that is electioneering, is certainly being mischievous. It also shows how unsympathetic they are to the public servants, to the sugar workers, to the teachers, the policemen, and the soldiers, and all those who will be benefiting from this increase. Are they saying that these categories of employees do not deserve a wage increase? I wish if they can say that publicly, that we should ignore workers getting better increases. And if our economy can afford more, the PPP Civic, going back from Dr. Jagan's time, has made it clear that we are interested not only in the creation of wealth, but also we're interested in the proper distribution of wealth. And if the economy is growing, if you have more capacity to pay and to provide better wages to all our people, we will do so as a government. And if you look at where wages have been. Wages have been increased under the PPP Civic by in excess of 675%. And that is US dollars. If we use just US dollars, moving from when it was just about 25 US dollars when we came into office, today in excess of 400 US dollars. Minimum, we don't have an established minimum wage, but if you look at the lowest wage in terms of the band. And other categories, teachers and so forth, have had, in fact, a more than 700% increase since 1992. So those who say that this is electioneering is unsympathetic. They're certainly anti-worker, and they do not have the interests of the ordinary people at heart. You can't 1 minute accuse the government of not doing enough for workers, and when we do something for workers, you say, hey, hold on, that is electioneering.
A follow-up, actually, and a lot of comparison are being made. How would you,
Well, first of all, you know, I'm dissatisfied that the opposition is not focusing on issues, not focusing on what plans they have for the country's future. And certainly what we said several weeks ago, there is an alliance between the AFC and APNU. And there will be evidence that will be revealed shortly about that alliance. The strategies are the same. The positions that they take are the same. The advertisements, even when they're running on your newscasts and elsewhere in newspapers, are about the same. We know about the backroom talks that took place, and we know what the arrangements they put in place, thinking that they can unseat the government and the post-electoral alliance. Those are clearly established. And if you look, the strategy of both parties, they have not offered the people of Guyana what their vision and plan is for the future. You know what they've offered the people? They're in the business of scandal mongering. They're in the business of talking about all sorts of irrelevant. They have been in the business in terms of generating rumors and all sorts of unhelpful issues that are irrelevant to the electorate. Take, for instance, as the laws of Guyana provide, this is not a JAGDEO pension fund, a pension plan. This is a pension arrangement that are given to former presidents. And former presidents before Barra JAGDEO would have enjoyed that facility. This, if you look at the plan, it is similar to what is established for the chancellor, for people in the judiciary, high officials within the judiciary. So this issue is just a bogey. They cannot find issues to fault our development agenda. They are yet to pour holes into our manifesto and to say what we have here is not good for the people of Guyana. So what they've gone off to, what the president is doing, what the pension plan is, making up rumors. Now I see they've started a campaign against the presidential candidate, making all sorts of derogatory remarks, questioning health and all sorts of issues. So what we have here is an opposition that is not interested in issues, is not interested in a vision for people, how it can take care of the concerns of young people, working people, create jobs, create economic opportunity. But what they are in the business of is generating. They don't want to generate wealth or jobs. They want to generate rumors and scandals. And that is what their campaign is. And I wish them well in this regard. But this is certainly a non-issue. And we will not in the future be engaged or in any way be distracted by this. We want the debate, we want the campaign to be about issues and the future of this country.
If you would care to indulge just one more question on this pension thing. Mr. Nagamoto said that when he saw the package, the bill, it was with shame and he regretted voting for it, but he had to do so because this is because he was a PPP member. I'm wondering, is this written or unwritten party policy? And secondly, you did mention of the manifesto. Mr. Granger did say that there is nothing new. It's basically a regurgitation of past manifestos. So I'm wondering what sticks out as new and different from the previous manifesto.
Let me deal with the manifesto. When I see Mr. Granger's manifesto, then I will pay any serious attention to what he has to say about the PPP Civic Manifesto. Mr. Granger lives in the past. Mr. Granger is about the past. Mr. Granger is the embodiment of all things that went wrong in this country. and this is not a personal comment. This is about what he has said, what he believes in this regard. So he has no futuristic, he has no vision for the country. And I'm happy he read our manifesto, because he'll find that there's a lot of comfort, there's a lot of room for all parties to work on. What we've offered here is a platform for the continued development and transformation of our country, and also for all to be involved. And if you read the foreword by our presidential candidate, he made it absolutely clear. This manifesto is inclusionary, it is visionary, it is very practical, and there's a role for all to play, including Mr. Granger, in its implementation. Are you telling me ensuring that we create new sectors in our national economy, that's not new? Are you telling me the major projects that we have, which we want to do in terms of infrastructure, in terms of renewable energy, that's not new? Are you telling me a review of our tax system, including reviewing VAT, is that not new? Are you telling me looking at terms of giving people incentives who have children that they benefit from special tax arrangement, isn't that not new? Are you telling me about the facilities that we have for young professionals, giving them much more access to services, giving them much more access to the wherewithal? Isn't that not new? Well, I'm not sure what he read, but if he read this, he certainly would not have come to that conclusion. But I will not offer much more on what Mr. Granger has to say about this manifesto. I think he should spend more time writing his own manifesto, because I think it's time that the APNU provides a manifesto and tell the people of Guyana. At least the AFC has done 4 versions of a document. They say that it's the manifesto. Every month, I think they tend to, you have the 4th edition. And it shows, it shows what unstable grouping that we're dealing with. Can't focus and be dedicated to what the vision of this country. But we are quite clear, we are quite sure and certain about where we're going. In terms of the Mr. Nagamutu's position, well, Mr. Nagamutu, first of all, will try to find an excuse why he was with the PPP for so many years, and why it was that he is part of the PPP's program, which he will now criticize. And everything that the PPP and the PPP Civic has done, I'm quite sure you'll find an excuse from Mr. Nagamutu to why now, belatedly, he does not find favor with that. But it's expected. It is expected, and poor Nagamutu. Poor Nagamutu. All I have to say.
But is there such a policy for voting with the party and the manifesto?
It's not an issue of policy, but it is expected that we have a collective responsibility. And persons, we've had issues in the parliament where persons are allowed a conscience vote. If you don't believe in something, you can either absent yourself, go to the toilet, or you can abstain. And persons within the PPP Civic have done that from time to time. So there is nothing whereby persons, someone puts a gun to their head and says, vote. It's craziness. Total is ridiculous. The explanation given by Mr. Nagamutu is ridiculous and laughable. As I said, poor Nagamutu.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
They wanted me to join another party. Say it again. No way! They wanted me to fight my party. I am a colleague of Kemraj Ramjatan in the same building. And he tried, and he tried, and he failed, and he failed. I told him I will never become a Nimakaram.
In 1992, 98% of what Guyana earned went to repay debts. The country was bankrupt. Infrastructure was dilapidated. The country was in shambles. From being the breadbasket of the region, Guyana had been relegated to one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Even worse, Guyanese had been denied the right to free and fair elections for decades. Today, debt service ratio is down to only 4%. The country is booming again, We are the envy of the region, with strong economic growth for successive years, despite a global recession. And Guyana is poised to take off to even greater heights.
Together with the PPP
The more things change, the more they stay the same. No matter what the name, this is what the APNU offers Guyana. This is what they want you to vote for. But we all remember too well what this represents.
We must look backwards.
Guyana says, never again.